As anyone who's been around the channel for a while will know, I'm a big fan of beat 'em up games. Aside from this though, I'm also a big fan of classic monster movies. Big kaiju stomping through cities and taking each other on. Well, Dawn of the Monsters combines both of these guilty pleasures into one package, and it has just released on the Nintendo Switch. Is it the king of the monsters, or is it as appealing as, well, a pile of fish?
That's a lot of fish.
I'm Glen Bolger, thank you to Way Forward for the review code, and now let's find out.
Task force known as Dawn is established to fight back. For years, they studied
The story takes place in a time where the world has been ravaged by attacks from enormous monsters called the Nephilim. These gargantuan creatures have destroyed cities the world over, but a new defense force has been formed to tackle the threat, which consists of armoured robot Aegis Prime, who has been fighting the Nephilim threat for many years, a new younger hero herself in an armoured robot suit called Tempest Galahad, and two of the Nephilim themselves that have been reconditioned to fight for humanity. These are the fire-breathing Megadon and the aquatic terror Genera. These four heroes are humanity's final hope. So gameplay wise, Dawn of the Monsters is a fairly traditional beat 'em up in terms of the fact that you move your 2D characters on a 3D plane, with the main change to its peers being that rather than making your way through a number of city streets, owing to your size, you navigate the whole cities themselves, walking through skyscrapers and power lines with practically everything in the environment being destructible. You'll have a choice of the four kaiju and then make your way through these cities with a number of the Nephilim attacking you, locking the screen into place until you defeat them all. You will be graded for each of these sections, all of the grades are then taken into consideration and a grade average awarded at the end of the stage. These fights can see a number of enemies taking you on at once, with new monsters with their own specific abilities being introduced at fairly regular intervals, and between the powers they have, the fact that some have multiple health bars to whittle down, and the sheer weight of numbers, you can quite easily find yourself in trouble if you aren't careful. Thankfully, you have a few moves to assist you on your mission, and each of the four characters have different special moves which helps to keep each of them feeling fairly fresh. Every character has a light and heavy attack performed with Y and X respectively, as well as a dash attack by pressing A. There is a block and a dodge move, and I found this particularly useful as the monsters began to hit harder. As well as this though, by holding down L and pressing one of the three assigned face buttons, you can perform one of three character specific rage attacks once you unlock them. These will use up some of your rage points, and the difference in the moves between the four characters really do make it worth experimenting with each of them. Megadon's first attack, for example, is a basic fireball, whereas Genera's first sees him call upon a small sidekick to help him, but then the three moves themselves per character are also very different, with some being more defensive and others more projectile based. Damaging an enemy to within an inch of their life allows you to perform an execution move. This kills them instantly but will also heal you to a small degree, again though at the expense of one of your rage points. Spending the rage points though fills up your cataclysm meter, and once full you can perform a screen clearing cataclysm attack. Finally, if all else fails, you can pick up the skyscrapers or other such buildings to use against your foes. I did really love this different take on the beat 'em up genre. With the exception of King of the Monsters 2, generally games with this theme are one-on-one fighters. What it does mean though is that there isn't a jump command. Due to the size of the characters this is understandable, but considering that there are four characters, two of which are huge mech robots, it would have been nice if at least one of them could jump, just to change up the gameplay further between them. There are differences in their speed, although not to a huge degree, and again with two of the characters being mechs, personally I would have just preferred one of these to have been switched out for a completely different type of kaiju. Perhaps a giant ape, that would have been good, or maybe a flying monster along the lines of Mothra or Rodan. This would have just brought a completely different dynamic to levels and increased replayability. Mini bosses appear in certain levels, and there is a main boss at the end of a city's worth of stages, which usually consists of 8 or 9 levels in total. These pose a big threat and you'll need to use your full roster of moves to take them down. Completing levels rewards you with a choice of augments, and 3 of these can be equipped to your characters to improve their stats and give them certain perks. These include the damage inflicted through heavy attacks increasing if you use a number of light attacks in succession, or successfully guarding against attacks then stunning enemies. There are a number of these to find, and they add some depth to the fighting, although I didn't really spend a huge amount of time with them outside of equipping them once the game reminded me to do so. There are also upgrades for health and rage meters that can be bought with the money you acquire through playing. Dawn of the Monsters is a little slower than most beat 'em ups, which makes sense considering the subject matter, but this will need to be considered when purchasing. It's still good fun though, I love the setting, and the 2-player mode, albeit only local, also adds a lot to the package. Gameplay gets 15 out of 20. Controls work well enough, although a few moves are assigned to holding an existing button down rather than just using a new button, but on the whole they get 16 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, Dawn of the Monsters uses a hand-drawn art style which looks like it could be straight out of the pages of a manga comic. There is a dot effect used for shading of buildings and the monsters themselves that looks very reminiscent of the art style used by pop artist Roy Lichtenstein. The inspiration for the characters themselves seems to draw from various sources, with Megadon and Ganira definitely taking inspiration from Toho's classic kaiju, the likes of Godzilla of course, and Gamera, whereas the mechs, whilst perhaps having a little bit of Jet Jaguar about them, also from Toho, they definitely have a look of the characters from the Guyver manga series, which I am admittedly less familiar with. There are 35 missions within the game, generally split across 4 major cities, and I was a bit concerned that this would mean that a lot of the levels would look the same. Whilst I do wish they had incorporated a few more locations for the missions to take place within, there are at least set pieces or story driven levels which mix things up. For example, one of the Canadian levels sees a lightning storm break out, and one of the levels set in Brazil involves there having been a flood. A bit more variety and a stronger use of the vibrant colour palette that is seen in glimpses, to be fair, would have been appreciated though. The music has a dark and foreboding theme to it, whilst also fulfilling the action based agenda needed to complement the gameplay. Explosions and roars are heard as you would expect, although this is perhaps another area where things could have been ramped up to really accentuate the scale of the monsters and the sense of exactly how much is at stake. Visuals have a classic comic book style with well designed characters and some great scene setting through backgrounds and colour. A little more variety would have been welcomed, but visuals receive 17 out of 20. Audio backs up the action very well, and just a little more weight to the battle cries of the monsters would have been perfect. It also scores 17 out of 20. Dawn of the Monsters costs £23.59 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. Now in terms of production values, the price isn't necessarily extortionate, and the time that you spend with it will certainly be a good one, provided you like beat 'em ups. It suffers from the same drawbacks as other games in the genre, so therefore it will not be converting anyone who has never been a fan of the genre to begin with. In fact, owing to the lack of a jump, it may even seem more plodding to those who have no affinity for kaiju monsters. If you do have a liking for either of these things though, then this plus the upgrade system and the local multiplayer does mean that there are certainly a lot of positives to find here. On balance, value scores 14 out of 20. To conclude, Dawn of the Monsters is an action-packed and incredibly fun beat 'em up. As I said, I love the setting, yes from a personal point of view of enjoying the source material, but also it's just a different sort of setting for a beat 'em up to take place in, and I did very much appreciate this. There are a host of moves plus upgrades and augments to find, which does add some variety and replayability to proceedings, plus of course there is that local multiplayer which elevates things to another level if you have someone to play with. It is still quite expensive for what you're getting, I must say, and there are other very good options in terms of beat 'em ups already on the Switch, but if you do have an affinity for the two, beat 'em ups and kaiju, then you really can't go wrong here. Dawn of the Monsters gets a SwitchUp score of 79%. Thank you everybody for watching this review, I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Let me know what your favourite kaiju film is, if you have one of course, stick it in the comment section below, I'll be very interested to read about them. And who is your favourite of all the monsters? Again, put it down in the comment section below. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.
whole area of Nephilim for the repairs to begin.